thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this community as we explore and talk about and potentially obsess over DNA tests and ethnicity and diversity and that sort of thing. So I made a video quite recently and it was called My Heritage When DNA Tests Bring Emotional Healing. Faded 702 had this to say, and I, man, feel it in my heart right here as my heart goes out to Faded. Here's what he says, quote, I have been dealing with racism my whole life and recently have encountered covert racism from an older man. Explanation, I said either Merry Christmas or Happy Hanukkah. I'm not sure. This community is diverse, middle to upper class. The man stated, now it is, with a very dirty look and aggressive tone. Then he and his wife walked out with a dirty look, staring. My mother is Filipina and my father is Chicano British, which is American at this point. He says, sometimes I wonder if racism has consumed me in a way that I have to make mental moves to either predict or think like a racist to see if people's intentions are pure. I recently found out on my mother's side that I'm Filipino, Han Chinese, and Japanese. My father's side showed North African, Middle East, Spanish, Italiano, British, Irish, Scandinavian, and Native American, which is funny because a lot of those he just named, that's my mother's side. Objectively, this would make racism illogical by saying that people who look away that are based on the observer's belief and inductive reasoning. I was raised as a Filipino American, but people keep telling me that I should speak Spanish because I look Latino. This logic would mean that people of European descent mostly speak French, Spanish, Italian, etc., which mostly ends up being false. The objective DNA result in history shows that we are all mixed, but people out there just see skin color. I feel much better about my self-worth and honored by my ancestors for life. Great video, brother, end quote. Thank you. Hey, thank you for sharing that. I mean, that really, I love reading the comments that I get in these videos, and I love when I hear personal stories like this. Because I can say this, I cannot personally connect to this story. I have never been in a situation where I personally have been even an accidental or hidden attack on my ethnicity. That's not something I can relate to at all. But I will say this, I have so much compassion for people who have and for people who do on a daily basis. And you know, it's sad. It's sad that people out there still treat one another in that way with any sort of form of racism. It's just sad. And if I could be of any encouragement to anyone watching this video, it would be this. Like my mom said growing up, Nick, consider the source. Anytime someone says something that could possibly be offensive, Nick, consider the source. And that's the thing, I think, and it mentioned it was an older man. That's the thing. I mean, I'm a millennial. I'm one of the first of the millennial generation. We're the first generation to be the least racist. In fact, when we see racism, we're the first to acknowledge it and run away from it. We want no part of it. That's part of our identity as a generation. We celebrate diversity. But when you're talking about older generations like that, they're more likely to still think that way. That's the way they were raised. And in a way, I kind of feel sorry for them that they grew up thinking so incorrectly. That because of your skin color or your race or whatever your native first language is or whatever it is, that somehow makes you less of a person or less even of an American, you know. It's sad. And so really we should have pity, privately, we should have pity on people who judge each other with any sort of racism. Now, and I don't mean that in a way like look down on them, but just think that's too bad that person lives their life being limited on their perspective. Because for people like me and for people like you, we're not limited on our perspective. We can see a black guy and a white girl in love and say, good for them. Whereas someone of an older generation say, it's like I just don't care at all about that. But in fact, no, that's not true. I'm not apathetic. I do care in a positive way. I'm like, good for them, that's great. It could have just as easily been me marrying a black girl. It could have been. Didn't happen for me. My wife's white instead. But it's not like when I was single, cared about that. I didn't care about it at all. It just so happened to be that my wife's not black or Asian or Mexican or whatever would, in contrast, look at me and you know, oh, they're of different races or whatever. So it is sad that there's a whole generation even that sees people that way and even looks down on them for that. But again, we don't want to return the favor by thinking, oh, well, then we become ageist and think, that older generation, they think they're so racist, because not all of them are. And I think a lot of them probably are struggling to accept how things are now, that we're judged not on our skin color or our national background or things like that, but instead our accomplishments, our identity, our self-worth, aside from something so superficial as our race or skin color. So I am sorry for anybody who's having to encounter that. And I think I have a lot of compassion because I can understand personally, but I'm putting myself in that situation of trying to understand that. And it's so complex, and it's so sad that still happens. But ultimately, if nothing else, if you're someone who has encountered racist reactions in any way, just think, that's a reaction of someone who to some degree still lives their life in a degree of fear. Oh no, there's an outsider. They're not one of us. I don't want them to be part in my life. I gotta stay where I am. Whereas someone like me, I'm like, open arms, man, come here, you know? I don't care about all that. I celebrate it, but it's not gonna make me change my view of you at all. So definitely, absolutely, undeniably, there are going to be generational gaps that cause certain people to be more racist in some ways. And it's not to say that all the people are that way from generations. Maybe most of them are not. Maybe just certain generations are more likely to be that. And then there could be guys much younger than me in their 20s and they're outright racist. But I think it's important to notice that, yeah, a generational thing. I think if, let's say you are a younger person in your teens or 20s, and you've already seen how that's happened where older people kind of look at you a certain way, that's their struggle. That's not your struggle, is it? I'd say it's not your struggle unless you allow it to be. They're going to spend the rest of their life trying to sort that out. The fact that there's someone of mixed race, they're Chinese and black, what? And I look at you, I say, I like you. If you tell me you're Chinese and black, I'm like, cool. And then we move on. So ultimately, remember, it's their problem. It's not yours unless you let it be your problem. But you're too smart for that. You're not gonna let it be your problem.